Good morning. Thank you for joining me, Cues with Dogs. Today we are going to learn about different learning styles in regards to how we understand the world around us. As humans and as dogs, I think it's valid. I think it's important. Some of the brain stuff that I'm going to talk about is more in the human brain than it is in the dog brain. I am not 100% positive how similar these things are. I do believe that dogs have their greatest ability is within our greatest ability. So if that makes sense. Anyways, the three learning styles. We have modeling, we have associative learning, and we have conceptual learning. The majority of dogs that are trained by trainers are trained through associative learning. That is really fundamentally based on cause and effect, how they feel, creating stimuli, holding back stimuli, and there's various stuff in there. So I think it's important to look at that. What we're going to talk about first is modeling behavior. I do modeling behaviors with my dog. I will mimic my dog. I will literally get out of bed in the morning and get on the floor, and whatever she's doing, I'll do. And she gets really excited about this. She starts to have a lot of fun with it. And then somewhere in the middle, we switch roles where she gets to mimic me, and she does that really well. And there is a certain type of enjoyment that she gets out of it. And I sense this type of closeness as a result of it. Do I look 100% ridiculous? Yep. Would I do that for my dog? Yep. Anyways, so mimicking is very much a simple form of empathy, but it also produces a relatively good state of self-awareness. And we see this in young children. We see this in young puppies. Here's an example. With my dog, I've never seen her throw scat before. And throwing scat is when the dog goes to the bathroom and then they throw it behind them so that they make their smell bigger so that other dogs can know where they were at. Anyways, never seen her done it before. She had a buddy named Jake, and Jake did it all the time. And all of a sudden I started seeing her do it. Jake's not around anymore, but she still does it. But like, I always associate it back to Jake because that's where she picked up the mimicking behavior. So mimicking behavior really doesn't focus on whether the behavior is right or wrong. It focuses, I think, a little bit more on how it feels internally to us, and also compassion. You know, like if we see somebody doing something and we do it ourselves, now we know what that actually feels like. So it's more of a feeling empathy. It's not the cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is like seeing how everybody reacts to a certain situation. Well, I guess that's kind of mimicking as well. Anyways, scratch that. And just caught myself in the middle. That happens. Oh yeah. Oh, P.S. by the way, if you're ever wondering about my glasses, my glasses are not crooked. I think it's my face that's crooked. I got hit by a Mack truck. It drives me crazy that my glasses are always like this. Anyways, if it's bugging you, that's why. You know, I could have custom made glasses, but why bother? Anyway, so when we mimic, it's a simple form of empathy and self-awareness. When we are being mimicked or modeled by someone else, the right side of our brain is functioning. When we are mimicking or modeling somebody else, the left side of our brain is functioning. So important to know. Areas of the brain that it affects. And there's more. I'm just giving you a basic. I want you to do the research. I want you to find out for yourself because you'll see how incredibly expansive all of this stuff is. So the inferior parietal cortex, the superior temporal gyrus, modeling. Associative learning is classical and operant conditioning. This is predominantly what we use with dogs, as I said before. Very interesting on that level. Because lots of areas of the brain that function in order for us and others to do associative learning. We've got short-term thinking, we've got long-term thinking, we've got patterns that are happening, we have goals, we have a reward system that gets involved in that. And movements, like what movements are needed out of us. So if we start looking at the brain and what areas function with what, you're going to be looking at the frontal lobe, you're going to be looking at the prefrontal, the stratum, the hippocampus, the interior cingulate cortex, and of course the frontal lobe, which I think I said that, so I doubled up on that one. There you go. 2 for 1. Okay, so the one that I'm trying to integrate and the one that I get really excited about is conceptual learning. Conceptual learning is something that human beings do all the time. We constantly say that, well, I've heard a lot of people repeat this information, and I think I was repeating it for a while too, until I learned this stuff, and now I realize that, yeah, wrong. So I'm really comfortable being wrong. And being wrong is actually part of conceptual learning, which I find very exciting, because now we don't have to be judgy when we get stuff wrong. Like, that doesn't help us learn. Anyways, conceptual learning is basically, it's a sense of autonomy where you get to kind of choose to put things into groups that make sense to you, that you integrate into your brain. So a very simple form of this would be, I tell my dog to go get a ball, and she goes get the ball. That's not conceptual. That's associative. I ask my dog to go get a toy, and she brings me back a ball. That's conceptual. It's taking a category and creating a category in your brain to keep your information organized. But then not only do you have to do that, but that category becomes associative with another category, meaning you now are thinking independently, which requires a tremendous amount of autonomy and ability to make your own choice, to realize that you have choices, that you can do various things, and that you're basically exploring. So where we go with that is that, okay, now it's totally cool to make mistakes, because we're going to make mistakes while we're doing this type of learning, conceptual learning, and we'll figure it out for ourselves. And that's where the majority of ourselves come from, and that's the different of our perspective. So I don't think dogs are limited to 4-year-old behavior. I think we train them on 4-year-old behavior, because that's what we know. So here we go. I'm going to flip this over and share with you how I'm trying, what I'm doing, and how I'm trying to incorporate conceptual learning with my dog. So I want to utilize conceptual learning in regards to the way that my dog learns. So all the information that I've shared with you has so much to do with this. I want my dog to think for herself. I want her to be able to make choices and feel comfortable doing so. I want her to experiment. I want her to try. I want her to be curious. And I want her to be able to reclassify things if she needs to. Like if something worked for her before, but now she's gotten new information and that information doesn't fit into the new integration process. I want her to be able to kind of shift things in her own brain and figure out, which I like to do. I like to do that a lot. Anyway, so this is how I've done it. I focus specifically on the way that I'm training my dog so that she can have a greater understanding of my human experience. I make it a constant need to praise her for curiosity, to praise her for trying, and to praise her for things that she enjoys doing, instead of focusing on the behavior being right or wrong from my own perspective. I'm really genuinely caring about how is my dog going to learn, and what's going to help her to learn more. The other thing that I've implemented in is a consistency in the style of which I choose to teach my dog, meaning there is a consistency in ascension, like when she learns a new behavior, we start small, and there's a consistency in going up. And then there's also consistency in de-escalating, or the dissension process, meaning if she is extremely alert, then my job is to meet her in that extreme alert fashion, but to do it in a positive way so that she can, so I'm mirroring her, but I'm doing it not in a out of control type fashion, but very much on an in control type fashion, so that she can see that ability, she can latch onto that, and then we can both kind of bring it down together. Perfect example of that is barking. I want my dog to bark. When my dog barks, I get up, I go check it out. I'm like, Nietzsche, what is it? Who's there? Or is somebody not saying hi to you? What's going on? And my voice is high pitch. I'm using questions because of the high tone on the end. And I'm meeting her right where she's at. And then I'll look at her and I'll be like, oh my gosh, you're such a good dog. And I'll pet her. But then I'll turn around and I'll be like, okay, that was great. Can we let it go? And she knows what let it go means. I haven't stopped her from releasing that energy, but what I'm teaching her while she's at that energy is how to bring it down slowly. And then I will walk away from her, as an example, and usually go into the house and get a treat. And my treats, when I give her treats, is always a thank you. So now she's had that excitement. Now there's more excitement happening at the refrigerator. And you see how I'm slowly just bringing her down, but she's bringing herself down. I'm just creating the environment for her to descend. So that's something that's consistent in my behavior with her. And I think that ascension and descension is really a great foundation for conceptual learning, because I think everything really processes that way. And if they know how to do that, then they're going to feel more calm and more emotionally stable, because they're not going to rely on us for cues to do something or not do something. They will be able to do that on their own because they've repetitively repeated that pattern. And then the last thing that I really do focus on is opposites. If I meet a dog and all the dog does is bark, then I know that dog has a really hard time not barking. So when I meet the dog, I'm going to reward the dog for barking. And the reason I'm rewarding the dog for barking is because I want that dog to feel comfortable with what they're doing, so that I can establish some trust. Because if they can take rewards for barking, the behavior's not right or wrong to me, so I don't look at it like that I'm reinforcing bad behavior. If I can get that emotional stability built between me and the dog, and then I can take that and I can flip it, meaning like, if I'm asking the dog to bark, then as soon as the dog doesn't bark, then I can start treating them on the not barking. So now I have a dog that not only knows how to bark, but a dog that knows how to not bark. And then my next step is, now I'm going to ask the dog to bark on cue. My dog barks on cue. I point her in the face. As a matter of fact, I go to the coffee shop, and the people at the coffee shop know all they have to do is stare at her and point at her, and she will bark. She will speak. And that is a fun, easy way for her to be able to be a dog in a human world. I've integrated it where I've not told her she can't do that behavior at all. I've merely come at it in a creative fashion and said, what is this behavior and how can I make it work for the dog and for myself, empathetically towards both individuals. The other part of that is my focus is more on behaviors that are safe and behaviors that are unsafe. My thought pattern is not about right behaviors or wrong behaviors. My thought pattern is more along the lines of safe or unsafe. So I may see an unsafe behavior and ask myself, how can I make that same behavior in a safe environment? I roughhouse with my dog. It's play fighting. Yeah, it's important to her. It's part of who she is. She's a Rottweiler. So yeah, there you go. So anyways, I think by doing these things, I'm actually assisting my dog in conceptual learning. The thing about conceptual learning is it uses far more areas of the brain. It uses all the areas of associative learning and all the areas of modeling, as well as many others. But I think the benefit as a human being that I see is I have a dog that's pretty chill. And I trust her. Not because she listens to me, but because she knows who she is. And I trust that. I think that's a wonderful thing. So anyways, yeah, styles of learning, what we know and what we don't know. If you don't know it, find out more, explore, experiment, try and figure it out. Conceptual learning is the bomb, and a lot of people don't know how to do it. So the more we do it, the better we get at it. Anyways, a lot of dogs don't know either. Have a great day. Bye.